The evening sky was covered with heavy clouds, and the streets shone with the reflection of rainwater. Daniel pulled his jacket closer as he hurried down the wet road after finishing a long day at work. He had been working since morning, first at the small repair shop and then at a warehouse to earn extra money. His body was tired, and his mind was filled with the thought of nothing more than going home, making a quick meal, and falling into bed. But as he walked past the old corner cafe, the warm light from inside caught his attention. The glass windows were fogged, and he could see steam rising from cups of coffee and tea. Something about that comfort pulled him in. He decided to step inside for a moment just to rest and warm up before heading home. The cafe was quiet, with only a few customers sitting in small groups. Daniel ordered a cup of tea and took a seat near the window. The gentle sound of rain tapping against the glass relaxed him. As he sipped the hot drink, his eyes fell on a small figure sitting a few tables away. It was a little girl, no older than 7, sitting alone at a table with an empty cup in front of her. Her tiny hands were folded neatly, and she looked out the window with an expression that seemed far too serious for a child her age. Daniel felt a pull of concern. Why was such a young girl sitting here alone at this hour? He glanced around, expecting to see a parent nearby, but there was no one. The girl's clothes were clean but simple, and her shoes looked a little worn. She didn't seem lost, yet she sat with a kind of stillness that didn't feel normal for a child. After a few moments of hesitation, Daniel stood and walked over to her table. He didn't want to frighten her, so he gave a gentle smile before speaking. "Hello," he said softly. "Are you waiting for someone?" The girl turned her head slowly and looked at him with big brown eyes. There was no fear in them, only a kind of calm curiosity. "Yes," she answered in a small but clear voice. "I'm waiting for my sister. She's working right now, but she'll come soon." Daniel nodded, relieved that she wasn't completely alone. "That's good. I just wanted to make sure you're safe," he said kindly. The girl tilted her head slightly, studying him as though she was thinking deeply. Then all of a sudden, her lips curved into a little smile and she leaned forward across the table. In a voice both innocent and bold, she said, "My big sister is perfect for you. Please take care of us both." Daniel froze in surprise. For a moment he wasn't sure he heard her right. "What?" he asked, blinking in confusion. The little girl nodded, her expression completely serious now. "You seem like a good person. My sister needs someone like you. She works very hard and never rests. If you take care of her, then you'll also take care of me. So, please?" Daniel's mouth opened slightly, then closed again as he tried to process what had just happened. A laugh escaped him, partly from shock and partly from the sweetness of the child's unexpected request. He shook his head gently. "That's a very big thing to say to someone you just met," he said with amusement. The girl sat back in her chair, but she didn't look embarrassed. Instead, she seemed confident, like she truly believed every word she had spoken. Daniel was left speechless for a moment, wondering about the kind of life this little girl must have lived to say something like that. Before he could ask her more, the cafe door opened and a young woman rushed in, shaking off her umbrella. Her dark hair was damp from the rain, and her face showed signs of exhaustion. She looked around quickly until her eyes landed on the little girl. "Lily," she called softly but firmly as she hurried to the table. The little girl's face brightened. "Emma!" she exclaimed, jumping to her feet. So this was her sister, Daniel thought. Emma was young, probably in her early 20s, and she carried herself with quiet strength even though her clothes were modest and her face was tired. Daniel could immediately tell that she had been working hard, likely at more than one job, and yet she managed to smile warmly at her little sister. "I'm so sorry, Lily," Emma said, kneeling down to hug her. "I had to stay a little longer at work." "Did you wait long?" Lily shook her head quickly. "No, I was fine, and look, I made a new friend." She turned and pointed at Daniel. "This is Daniel. He's very nice. I told him you're perfect for him and that he should take care of us." Emma's face turned bright red as she gasped. "Lily!" she whispered sharply, mortified. She quickly looked at Daniel, embarrassed beyond words. I'm so sorry. She sometimes says strange things. Please don't mind her." Daniel raised his hands gently and smiled. "It's all right. She didn't mean any harm. She's just very honest," he said, trying to put Emma at ease. But inside, Daniel couldn't help but feel something stir. He saw the way Emma held her little sister, the way she apologized, and the quiet strength in her tired eyes. There was something deeply admirable about her. She seemed like someone who had been carrying far too much responsibility for her age. Emma stood and tried to pull Lily's hand. "Come on, we should go home. It's late." Daniel hesitated for a second, then spoke up. "It's raining heavily outside. If you'd like, I can walk you both home. It's not safe to be out so late in this weather." Emma looked at him uncertainly, not used to strangers offering help, but Lily quickly nodded with excitement. "Yes, please. That would be nice." Emma sighed softly, realizing it would be rude to refuse and that her little sister had already agreed. "All right," she said quietly. "Thank you." As they stepped out of the cafe together, the rain poured down harder, but Daniel held his umbrella over both sisters, keeping them dry. The three of them walked down the quiet street, and Daniel listened as Lily chattered cheerfully about little things in her life. Emma mostly stayed silent, but every now and then, Daniel caught her looking at him with cautious eyes. He didn't mind. He understood trust wasn't something easily given, especially for someone in her situation, but in that moment walking beside them, Daniel felt a strange warmth inside. He had only just met them, yet something told him that this was not the last time their paths would cross. And even though he tried to brush away Lily's bold words, they echoed in his mind, lingering longer than he expected. "My big sister is perfect for you. Please take care of us both." Daniel smiled to himself, not knowing that this unusual meeting in the rainy evening cafe was only the beginning of a story that would change all of their lives forever. The rain had slowed down to a soft drizzle by the time Daniel, Emma, and Lily reached the old neighborhood. The streets were narrow and the houses stood close to one another, most of them small but clean. Emma stopped in front of a two-story building with peeling paint but warm light shining through one of the windows. She turned to Daniel with polite gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you for walking us home," she said softly, trying to keep her voice steady. "We would have managed, but it was kind of you to help." Daniel smiled and shook his head. "It's no trouble at all. I'm just glad you both made it safely." Before Emma could say anything else, Lily tugged at her sister's hand and looked up at Daniel. "Won't you come inside? You can have tea," she said eagerly, her innocent face shining with hope. Emma looked down at her sister in shock. "Lily," she whispered, "we can't just invite strangers inside." But Lily pouted. "He's not a stranger. He's Daniel, and he's nice. Please, Emma." Daniel chuckled awkwardly, sensing Emma's embarrassment. "It's okay," he said quickly. "I should get going. You two have had a long day, and I don't want to intrude." Emma gave a small nod, clearly relieved. She pulled Lily toward the door, and Daniel offered a little wave. "Good night. Take care," he said, then turned to leave. But as he walked away, he couldn't shake off the feeling that their paths would cross again. There was something about that little girl's bold words and the quiet strength in Emma's eyes that stayed with him long after he reached his own small apartment. Over the next week, Daniel carried on with his routine. He woke up early, worked at the repair shop, rushed to his evening job at the warehouse, and returned home late at night. His life was simple, almost mechanical. Yet in the quiet moments, his thoughts often drifted back to the rainy evening at the cafe. He wondered how Lily and Emma were doing. Fate answered his unspoken questions sooner than he expected. One Saturday morning, Daniel decided to stop by the local market. The sun was shining brightly for the first time in days, and the streets were busy with vendors calling out their prices and families shopping for fresh produce. As he picked out some vegetables, he suddenly heard a familiar voice. "Daniel." He turned and saw Lily running toward him, her face glowing with excitement. Behind her, Emma followed quickly, balancing a basket of groceries. She looked surprised to see him but managed a polite smile. "Hello again," Daniel said warmly, bending slightly as Lily hugged his arm. "Doing some shopping?" "Yes," Emma answered. "We usually come here on weekends." She hesitated before adding, "It's good to see you." Lily immediately pulled Daniel closer to them, as if he belonged there. "Come with us," she said. "We're buying vegetables and fruit. Emma is very good at choosing the best ones. She knows which apples are sweetest." Daniel laughed, feeling the little girl's energy brighten the morning. Emma rolled her eyes playfully at her sister's words but didn't argue. Instead, the three of them walked through the market together. Daniel noticed how carefully Emma managed her spending. She compared prices at different stalls, counted her coins more than once, and always chose the most practical items. It was clear she had learned to stretch every penny to make ends meet. But what impressed Daniel most was her calmness. She never complained, never sighed. She simply carried herself with quiet strength, focused only on what Lily needed. When they finished shopping, Emma thanked Daniel politely. "It was nice to run into you," she said, preparing to leave. But Lily once again surprised both of them. "Let's go to the park," she declared. "Please, Daniel, come with us." "Emma, can we?" Emma looked torn, caught between refusing and not wanting to disappoint her little sister. Daniel quickly offered a solution. "If it's all right, I can join you for a little while. I don't have anywhere urgent to be." Emma hesitated for a long moment before finally nodding. "All right, just for a short while." At the park, Lily ran ahead to play on the swings, leaving Daniel and Emma standing by the bench. For the first time, they had a chance to talk properly. Emma explained a little about their lives. Their parents had passed away years ago, and she had been raising Lily ever since. She worked 2 part-time jobs, one at a bakery in the mornings and another at a small bookstore in the evenings. It wasn't easy, but she managed to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. Daniel listened quietly, admiring her honesty. He realized how heavy her responsibilities were, yet she carried them with grace. "That's not easy," he said softly. "But you're doing an amazing job. Lily looks so happy, and that says a lot about you." Emma glanced at him, a little surprised by his words. "I just do what I have to," she said humbly. "Lily deserves a good life. I don't want her to feel like she's missing out on anything." Daniel nodded, touched by her selflessness. He then shared a little about himself, how he worked long hours to support himself, how he often felt lonely with no family nearby. Emma listened quietly, and for the first time she allowed herself to smile more freely. Meanwhile, Lily returned, her face glowing with joy. She grabbed Daniel's hand with one and Emma's hand with the other, pulling them together as if they belonged side by side. "See, we're perfect," she declared happily. Emma's cheeks turned pink and she quickly scolded her sister. "Lily, don't say things like that." But Daniel only laughed gently, finding her embarrassment endearing. "She just says what she feels," he said kindly. As the afternoon sun began to fade, Emma stood and announced it was time to go home. Daniel offered to help carry their groceries, and though Emma resisted at first, she eventually accepted. They walked together once more, and Lily continued chatting happily about school, her favorite books, and how she wanted to be a painter someday. By the time they reached home, Emma felt more comfortable around Daniel than she had expected. Still, as she thanked him at the door, she added, "You've been kind, but I don't want you to feel like you have to help us. We'll manage on our own." Daniel shook his head gently. "I don't feel like I have to. I just want to." His voice was calm but sincere. Emma didn't know how to respond, so she simply nodded, her heart unexpectedly moved by his words. That night, Daniel returned home with a strange feeling in his chest. It wasn't just admiration anymore, it was something deeper, something he didn't quite understand yet. He realized he wanted to see Emma and Lily again, not just by chance but by choice. And while Emma tried to remind herself to keep her distance, she couldn't deny that for the first time in years, she felt less alone. As for Lily, she didn't worry about such things. In her young heart, she already knew the truth. To her, Daniel wasn't just a kind man who helped them. He was the missing piece of their little family. And though Emma tried to hide it, she was beginning to wonder if her little sister's innocent words might not be so far from reality after all. The days turned into weeks, and Daniel found himself meeting Emma and Lily more often than he had ever imagined. Sometimes it was by chance at the market, sometimes it was at the small park near their home, and sometimes Emma would call him for help when her work schedule got overwhelming. At first, Daniel thought he was simply being kind, but soon he realized he wanted to be there, not out of obligation, but because he truly cared for both of them. Lily became especially attached to him. Every time she saw him, she ran toward him with a smile so wide that it could brighten even Daniel's most tiring day. She talked to him about school, her drawings, and the little stories she made up in her head. Daniel listened patiently, never once showing boredom. He encouraged her dreams, told her that her drawings were beautiful, and even bought her a set of colored pencils when he noticed she was using broken crayons. Emma noticed these things. She tried to act indifferent, reminding herself that kindness did not always mean permanence. Yet deep down she admired how patient and gentle Daniel was with her little sister. He never treated Lily like a burden. Instead, he gave her the attention she craved, the kind of attention their parents would have given if they were still alive. One evening, after finishing his shift at the repair shop, Daniel found Emma waiting outside with Lily. She looked nervous, as though she wasn't sure if she was doing the right thing. "We were wondering," Emma began softly, "if you'd like to join us for dinner tonight," Lily insisted. Lily nodded eagerly.
"Please, Daniel."
"Emma makes the best soup." Daniel smiled warmly, his heart swelling at the invitation. "I'd love to," he replied without hesitation. That night inside their small but cozy home, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of belonging. The walls were simple, the furniture old, but everything carried warmth. Emma prepared the meal while Lily chattered endlessly, pulling Daniel into every part of their conversation. They laughed together, and when dinner was served, Daniel realized he couldn't remember the last time he had eaten with such joy. After dinner, Lily fell asleep on the couch, clutching the colored pencils Daniel had given her. The room grew quiet, and Emma sat across from him, her hands folded in her lap. For the first time, she allowed herself to relax. "You're very kind to her," Emma said softly. "I don't know why you spend so much time with us, but I'm grateful." Daniel shook his head. "You don't have to thank me. I like being around you both. It makes me feel less alone." Emma looked at him curiously, and he continued, "I've been on my own for a long time. I have work, yes, but when I go home, there's no one waiting. No one to share meals with or talk about the day. Meeting you and Lily, it feels different. Like I've found something I didn't know I was missing." His words touched Emma more deeply than she wanted to admit. She had built walls around her heart, convincing herself that she needed no one else, that she could carry all responsibilities alone. But hearing Daniel's sincerity made those walls feel weaker. She could see the truth in his eyes. He wasn't pretending. "Still," she whispered, "I don't want to be a burden to anyone. I've seen how people disappear when things get hard." Daniel leaned forward slightly, his voice steady. "I don't see you as a burden. I see strength. You've done so much for Lily, more than anyone could expect. That's not a burden, that's love." Emma didn't reply, but her eyes grew moist. She quickly turned away, pretending to adjust the blanket over Lily. The bond between them grew stronger after that evening. Daniel started visiting more often, sometimes bringing small treats for Lily, sometimes helping Emma with household repairs, and sometimes simply sitting and talking with them. Slowly, Emma began to trust him, letting him see the side of her that she usually kept hidden, the side filled with worry, exhaustion, and unspoken dreams. One day, Lily came home from school looking pale and tired. Emma rushed to her side, panic clear in her eyes. "Are you all right, Lily?" she asked anxiously. Lily nodded weakly. "I just feel dizzy." Daniel, who had stopped by after work, immediately suggested they go to the clinic. Emma hesitated, worried about the cost, but Daniel was firm. "Her health is more important than anything else. Let's go." At the clinic, the doctor explained that Lily had caught an infection and would need rest and medicine. Though it wasn't life-threatening, the news shook Emma deeply. She held Lily's hand the entire time, her face pale with worry. Daniel stayed by their side, speaking calmly to reassure them both. When they returned home, Emma sat beside Lily's bed, holding back tears. "I should be stronger," she whispered. "I should be able to handle everything on my own." Daniel sat quietly beside her, then placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "No one is meant to handle everything alone. Even the strongest people need someone to lean on." Emma looked at him with teary eyes. For a long moment their gazes held, and she realized something she had tried so hard to deny. Daniel wasn't just a kind man passing through their lives, he had become a part of them. He had stood by them in their moments of need without asking for anything in return. Lily stirred in her sleep and whispered softly, "See, Emma? I told you he's perfect for us." The words, innocent yet powerful, echoed in Emma's heart. She pressed her lips together, overwhelmed by emotion. From that day, things changed quietly but surely. Emma no longer looked at Daniel as an outsider. She began to see him as someone she could trust, someone who cared for Lily as much as she did. She didn't say it aloud, but deep down she knew her little sister's bold words were no longer just a child's fantasy. They were becoming reality. For Daniel, The realization was equally strong. He had thought he was only helping, only offering kindness, but he couldn't deny it anymore. He had grown attached to them. He cared for Lily like she was his own little sister, and he admired Emma more than words could describe. The bond between the three of them wasn't something forced. It was natural, built on small moments of trust, laughter, and shared worries, and though none of them said it aloud, they all felt it. Something beautiful was forming, something that could change all their lives forever. The days after Lily's illness brought a new kind of closeness between Daniel, Emma, and the little girl. Daniel visited more often, sometimes after his shifts, sometimes even before work, just to check on Lily and make sure she was getting stronger. Emma tried to tell him not to trouble himself so much, but deep down she couldn't deny how grateful she was for his presence. His calm voice, his steady actions, and his quiet strength gave her comfort she hadn't felt in years. One evening, after finishing her shift at the bookstore, Emma returned home exhausted. She was late, and her heart raced as she hurried up the stairs to their apartment. But when she opened the door, she found Daniel sitting beside Lily reading one of her picture books aloud. Lily was laughing, her small face glowing with joy. Emma stood silently for a moment, watching the scene, her tiredness slowly melting away. Daniel looked up and smiled warmly. "She's doing better today," he said. "Her fever's almost gone." Emma nodded, her heart full of emotions she couldn't name. "Thank you," she whispered. The days passed peacefully for a while, but life had a way of testing them again. One night, Lily woke up crying, her small body shaking with fever once more. Emma panicked, rushing to comfort her, while Daniel, who had just gotten home from work, rushed over when he heard the noise. He immediately offered to take them back to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor explained that Lily's infection had worsened because her immune system was weak from exhaustion. She would need stronger medicine and more rest. Emma sat on the hard hospital bench, her face pale, her hands trembling as she clutched the prescription papers. The costs were higher this time, and she didn't know how she would manage. Daniel sat beside her, calm but firm. "Don't worry about the bills. I'll help." Emma shook her head immediately. "No, I can't let you do that. You already do so much. I don't want to owe anyone." Daniel's voice grew steady. "Emma, this isn't about owing. This is about Lily. She needs the medicine, and she needs us both to be strong for her." Emma looked at him with tears in her eyes. For years she had carried the weight of responsibility alone, never asking anyone for help. But here was a man who wasn't running away, who wasn't complaining. He was simply staying, standing beside her as though it was the most natural thing in the world. That night, Daniel stayed with them at the hospital. He took turns with Emma, watching over Lily as she slept. He brought water, comforted Emma when she felt faint, and never once left their side. Even in the silence of the hospital room, there was something unspoken between them, something stronger than words. When morning came and Lily finally smiled weakly, Emma felt a flood of relief. She looked at Daniel, and her heart ached with gratitude. She whispered softly, "Why do you care so much? You don't owe us anything. You could walk away any time." Daniel looked at her steadily, his voice gentle but sure. "Because I don't want to walk away. Because you and Lily matter to me." Those words hit Emma deeply. She turned her head quickly, hiding the tears that filled her eyes. She had learned to be strong, to never show weakness. But in that moment she felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. Later that week, when Lily was allowed to return home, Daniel carried her gently in his arms up the narrow stairway to their apartment. Lily rested her head on his shoulder, half asleep, whispering softly, "See, Emma, I told you he's perfect for us." Emma's cheeks flushed, but she said nothing. She simply opened the door and let him in, silently accepting the truth that her little sister had always believed. The following days were filled with quiet moments that drew them closer. Daniel helped Emma with chores, making sure she got some rest while Lily recovered. He cooked simple meals, repaired a broken chair in their small dining room, and even fixed a leaky tap in the kitchen. Emma protested at first, but she soon realized that Daniel wasn't doing these things out of pity. He did them because he wanted to, because he truly cared. One evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Emma and Daniel sat on the balcony of the small apartment. The night air was cool, and the stars peeked through the thin clouds. For a while, they sat in silence, listening to the faint sounds of the city below. Finally, Emma spoke. "I've been afraid for so long," she admitted softly. "Afraid of trusting anyone. Afraid of losing what little we have. I thought I had to be strong all by myself because if I let someone in, they might leave." Daniel listened carefully, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. "You've been stronger than anyone I know," he said quietly. "But you don't have to be strong alone anymore. You have me. I'm not going anywhere." Emma turned to him, her eyes wide with surprise. The sincerity in his voice left no room for doubt. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe she didn't have to carry the world alone. Just then, Lily's small voice interrupted them. She had woken up and stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Emma," she said sleepily, "don't cry. Daniel will take care of us. I told you." Emma quickly wiped her eyes, embarrassed, but Daniel only smiled and lifted Lily into his arms. He carried her back to bed, tucking her in gently. Emma followed quietly, watching how naturally Daniel fit into their lives. It was as though he had always been there, as though he belonged. That night, when Daniel finally left for his apartment, Emma stood by the door long after he was gone, her heart filled with emotions she could no longer ignore. She realized that her little sister had been right all along. Daniel wasn't just a kind stranger. They had found someone who could truly be part of their small family. And though Emma still feared the unknown, she knew one thing for certain. She didn't want to imagine a future without him in it. The days after Lily's recovery brought a new rhythm to their lives. The little girl grew healthier and stronger with every passing week, her laughter filling the small apartment once again. Emma worked hard as always, but now she no longer carried her burdens entirely alone. Daniel had become a constant presence, stepping in whenever needed, offering not just his time but his heart. Lily, of course, was happiest of all. To her, Daniel was no longer just a visitor, he was family. She would hold his hand whenever they walked together, proudly introducing him to her friends as someone very special. Her innocent confidence made Emma blush more than once, but Daniel only smiled, never correcting the little girl. Deep down, he liked hearing it. One Sunday morning, Daniel invited them both to the park for a small picnic. He packed sandwiches, fruit, and a flask of tea, insisting it was his treat. Emma hesitated, unused to being cared for, but Lily's excitement swept her along. At the park, the three of them spread a blanket under a large tree. Lily ran off to play, leaving Emma and Daniel sitting side by side. The sunlight filtered gently through the leaves, casting golden patterns on the grass. For a while, they simply watched Lily play, her laughter like music in the open air. "She's full of life," Daniel said softly, admiration in his voice. "It's easy to see how much she loves you." Emma smiled faintly, her eyes fixed on her sister. "She's my whole world. Everything I do is for her. Sometimes I feel guilty, though, like I can never give her enough." Daniel shook his head firmly. "You've given her more than enough. You've given her love, safety, and happiness. That's more than many children ever get." Emma's eyes softened, touched by his words. "And what about you, Daniel? You spend so much time helping us. Don't you ever feel like you're giving up too much of your own life?" Daniel turned to her, his expression calm but sincere. "Being with you and Lily doesn't feel like giving up anything. It feels like gaining something I've been missing for years." The honesty in his voice left Emma speechless. She looked away, her heart pounding, but a small smile tugged at her lips. Later that afternoon, as they packed up to leave, Lily came running back, her cheeks flushed from play. She plopped down on the blanket, looked at both of them, and said with childish certainty, "We look like a family already." Emma gasped, embarrassed, but Daniel only chuckled softly. "Maybe she's not wrong," he said, his eyes meeting Emma's with quiet meaning. That night, after returning home, Emma lay awake long after Lily had fallen asleep. She replayed Daniel's words in her mind, along with Lily's bold statement. She couldn't deny it anymore. Daniel had become part of their lives in a way that felt natural, almost destined. The thought scared her, but it also warmed her heart. The turning point came a few weeks later. Emma's bookstore announced that her hours would be reduced due to slow business. The news shook her. She depended on both her jobs to keep things stable. She sat at the kitchen table that evening, her head in her hands, overwhelmed by worry. Daniel found her there when he stopped by to check on them. He immediately noticed her pale face and tense shoulders. "What happened?" he asked gently. Emma hesitated, then told him everything. If they cut my hours, I don't know how I'll manage the rent and Lily's school expenses. I've tried so hard to keep us afloat, but maybe I can't anymore." Her voice cracked at the end, and she quickly covered her face, ashamed of her tears. Daniel sat across from her, his tone calm but firm. "Emma, listen to me. You don't have to go through this alone anymore. Let me help. Not just with money, but with everything." "I mean it." Emma looked at him, startled. Why? Why would you do that for us?" Daniel held her gaze steadily. "Because you and Lily are important to me. Because I care about you. Because I don't see a life for myself without you two in it." The room grew silent. Emma's heart pounded as she searched his face, looking for any hint of hesitation but found none. His words were simple, but the truth in them was undeniable. For a long moment she said nothing. Then slowly she whispered, "I've been afraid of trusting anyone, but maybe Lily was right all along." At that very moment, a small voice interrupted them. Lily had woken up and stood by the doorway, her eyes wide and hopeful. "See, Emma," she said with a sleepy smile. "I told you Daniel is perfect for us. Now can we keep him forever?" Daniel laughed gently, and even Emma couldn't stop her tears from falling. She reached across the table and took his hand for the first time. It was a small gesture, but it spoke more than words ever could. From that day on, their bond grew even stronger. Daniel didn't just visit, he became part of their daily lives. He helped Lily with her homework, cooked meals with Emma, and walked them to the market. The neighbors began to notice too, whispering with smiles about the little family that seemed to have found happiness against all odds. Months later, on another rainy evening much like the night they first met, Daniel stood with Emma and Lily at the same cafe where it had all begun. Lily sat at the table sipping warm milk while Emma and Daniel shared quiet smiles. Lily suddenly looked up and said, "Do you remember the first time we met, Daniel? I told you my big sister was perfect for you. And see, I was right." Emma laughed softly, her cheeks pink, while Daniel reached out to ruffle Lily's hair. "Yes, Lily," he said warmly. "You were right." The rain outside tapped gently against the window. But inside the cafe there was warmth. Warmth born not from the lights or the drinks, but from the bond between three people who had found each other in the most unexpected way. Emma leaned back in her chair, finally allowing herself to feel peace. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. She didn't feel afraid. She knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, with Daniel by her side and Lily's laughter to guide them. And as Lily leaned her head against Daniel's arm, whispering happily about their future, Emma realized that her little sister's bold words had been the start of everything. "My big sister is perfect for you. Please take care of us both." What had once been a child's innocent wish had now become the truth of their lives. A truth built not on chance, but on kindness, trust, and the courage to open their hearts again. And so their story, which began with a simple meeting in the rain, continued forward, not as three separate lives, but as one family.